Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Table Talk. I'm your host, Jake Combs, and tonight we are looking at the G.I. Joe role-playing game expansion. This is actually the very first expansion for the game, called Operation Cold Iron. This is by Renegade Game Studios, and they did send this to us for the purpose of this review, and I did want to say thank you to them for that. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, previous viewers of the show may remember that we actually did the unboxing discussion of the original core book. One of the things that really stood out to me with that game as a whole, or this game rather, is that it doesn't really matter which G.I. Joe IP, or kind of reboot or whatever you want to call it, that you're playing. They're all going to follow the same rules, and you can take from whichever one you want. And so, that means that, if you prefer the original Marvel run of the comics, if you prefer the animated series, the original one that came out at the same time, or if you prefer, what IDW has done when they rebooted it, the Devil's Due run, when they continued the storyline that ended up getting completely cut out of continuity, whichever one you liked, that's the one you can play. And I think that aspect is a really cool concept where, most people or most role-playing games have a very, very defined rule set and background set. It doesn't give you that much freedom typically. And Renegade Games did a great job with that game, allowing you to pick and choose what you want to use. And really the only complaints that I've seen with it is that, essentially Cobra Commander being too powerful. Now, while as a character he's not, very powerful, from a strength perspective or, a weapon perspective, when you look at, any of the G.I. Joe, stories or shows or, comics, whatever, he always has this knack for getting away. So, it made sense in that aspect to make him a bit overpowered, because if you go in there with your G.I. Joe party and go to take him on and you want to defeat him, it's going to be a lot more difficult because he has this knack of just getting away every time. And so it's going to be very difficult to take him out permanently because of that. And so while I understand the complaints of him being too overpowered, to me it makes sense. Now with Cold Iron, or Operation Cold Iron rather, personally don't know anything about that storyline. My suspicion is that it is going to be based on a storyline in the animated series or from one of the comic book series. And now, where I've seen every episode of the animated series, including some of the reboots that they've done, or actually I think all of the reboots maybe? There might be one I haven't seen, I'm not sure. But And with the comics, I've literally read every comic that has been officially produced. So it's quite possible, I would say probable even, that I'm familiar with this story. I just don't remember it by name, because a lot of the story arcs, I did not remember the names. All right. So, just taking a quick look, seeing if it gives any call outs to anyone specific that would stand out as far as like maybe working on the comics or something, but nothing that I'm seeing in the credits section. So right off the bat, we go into Welcome to Operation Cold Iron. So it's set shortly after the events of Snake Pit which is the introductory adventure in the core rulebook, and Emerald, Weeblyette. Pretty sure I said that right. I could be wrong. The adventure accompanying the Game Master screen. So the Game Master screen is something that you can purchase separately from Renegade Games, but it does come with a mission as well with it. But right here immediately says if you're a player that's not played through that adventure or are planning on playing through the adventure series, stop reading now. So it is basically indicating that you do need to play those first, but at the same time, even though it's suggesting that, like, I know the main one for Snake Pit, like that one's going to be essential to kind of get everybody acclimated to the game before getting into this, but as far as the one that comes with the Game Master screen, that's not going to be essential in my opinion. Just because I do know that most people are probably not going to be getting the screen itself and are going to be basically playing, kind of like I'm sitting right now holding the book, and having their sheets and everything spread out. Now it does kind of take away a little bit of the mysticism when you play like that, but it really just comes down to the DM or the GM's preference in that case. So you have a section on the next page literally that basically says, how do I put this adventure into my campaign? And it does specifically say that while it's not necessary to have played the core rulebook adventure Snake Pit or Emerald Weeblyette, the events are designed for players beginning at second level. So, it's already going to be geared up for a higher difficulty for most players. So it's not recommending that you start here. But the way it's worded, to me, suggests that you can if you want that challenge. They just would not recommend it. Now, so we have a couple different missions as part of this campaign, or maybe a few rather. Let me double check. Okay, so it is 4 different missions. One called Slithering About, one is Rig Up, one is From October with Love, and then one is Panic in the North Plains. Now, looking at the names of those, Mission 3 specifically, specifically spelling October with a K instead of a C, tells me that we're going to be dealing with the October Guard. For those that are not familiar, they are the kind of like the Russian equivalent of G.I. Joe, but have in the past both fought G.I. Joe as well as teamed up with them to fight Cobra. The members of the group are not necessarily bad guys, but they are essentially working for a more corrupt government, essentially, and they are loyal to their nation, and so that does put them at odds at times. Now, so Slithering About, it's a multi-part mission for a team of 4 to 6 players, geared towards 3rd level characters, and then so we don't want to give away the story for these. I look at one of my cats is now on the table, so she might be gracing us with her presence here. Or what she usually does is at some point she will knock over the camera. So I do apologize if she does do that. One of the other cats has also jumped up on the table, and the two of them typically play pretty hard. So you might see either one of them as well. But as I was saying, don't want to go too in depth on these because there are some spoilers. But let's see. I don't really have anything that can block it except for my hand, but I mean, I do like the detail that they have in here of like these floor plans for extensive enterprises. And then let's see. And then we do have like actual maps of some of the testing site that you'll be working in as well. So definitely some great detail in here, and the fact that they have these, not just predefined, but like already drawn up for you at such a detail makes jumping into this much easier than most other role-playing games do with their expansions, in my opinion. Definitely liking that. Now, Mission 2, Rig Up, based on the picture, is indicating that this is going to be partially underwater, if not entirely around the water. We do see the shark working around a sea-based station. Some of the pictures do indicate Killer Croc, as well as Buzzsaw from the Dreadnoks, and so it does actually list some of them as well. So a lot of throwback to a lot of different characters like Zanzibar. See right here, one of my personal favorites, Zartan's sister, Zorana. And I'm hoping that this will make way for using Zartan's, I believe it was his daughter, but I can't remember her name. She was only in the Devil's Due run, so not certain if we'll see that, but I know that in the core book we did see the Red Shadows from Devil's Due, so would not surprise me. And then here is actually a very different take than we usually see on Dark One. Kind of more casual, looks like kind of like an 80s style where kind of going to the club. So very interesting take on him for sure, because typically he's more like almost always in his uniform. Now Mission 4, Panic in the North Plains, shows going to I'm guessing near the North Pole. And we do see, some snow-based vehicles and characters in here. We have Televipers, just a lot going on, a lot added here. And then we do go into the section for non-player characters and threats. So as we mentioned before, we saw Buzzsaw. So he's got an official sheet, Cobra Officer, Club Bouncer, Cobra Apprentice, Trooper, Viper, Darklon's sheet as well. And now this picture, having seen that there was a Club Bouncer, makes a little bit more sense. General Mayhem, who specifically works for Destro. We have the Hydro Vipers, which were actually always some of my favorite looking Vipers. Definitely a lot more intimidating than most other Cobra Vipers. And actually the one that I thought was Zorana was not. This is Lightning. She's a Dreadnought Scrapper. And then it actually even has stats for the polar bears up near the North Pole. Sludge, who's also a Dreadnought Scapper. And then we have or when I said Killer Croc before, I meant Crocmaster. And so we do see Crocmaster here, but he's not listed as Crocmaster, he's listed as Snapper. And then we have Razor the Alligator. I'm not sure why they didn't list him as Crocmaster. Maybe something to do with the rights, maybe an issue with the name, not sure. We have rules for Zanzibar. Now, the previous Dreadnought that we saw that was listed as a Scapper, I'm willing to bet is a misprint, because all of the other Dreadnoughts are listed as Scrapper, and I don't know what a Scapper is. So I'm thinking about sending an email to my contact over at Renegade to find out if that is actually a typo, or if that is something that is specifically named for that reason. And then we have stats for the different vehicles, like the Cobra Mantis, the Cobra Sea Ray. And one of my favorite things about seeing a lot of this stuff is it just takes me back to being a kid, growing up with the toys of most of these characters and vehicles and stuff, and seeing them in the cartoons and in the comics. And this game is definitely geared towards people like me. We even have the Snake cybernetic armor, which I don't remember seeing come up very much in the cartoons, but did come up quite a bit in the early days of the comics. Before they started really focusing more on the bats themselves. And then we have bigger versions of the blueprints, as well as the maps back here. And then lastly with the shark. And then we do have some coded messages done in Morse code with a Morse code chart, so you can actually decode it. My guess is when your players get to a certain point, when they'll get this message, you'll give that to them, and then let them solve it out. I think that is a really cool aspect. The fact that it gives you the Morse code chart allows you to kind of expand on it and create your own messages, your own things that you want to do with it. And I'm assuming the Morse code chart is correct as far as authenticity is concerned, and at least I hope. And so that's definitely something you can actually take away from this as well, and use for other games or in other ways as well. And then one thing I actually didn't notice as I was flipping through, but just noticed now, is it does have one of those nice ribbon bookmarks. I love when my hardcover books, especially for role-playing games, have that. Makes keeping your place a lot easier than having a traditional bookmark does, because those tend to fall out, where this is always going to stay in place, unless you actually take it out. So definitely really like it. The production quality is really high on here. I really like that. Definitely looking forward to actually giving this expansion a try, and diving into it and playing it. And I'm glad that they didn't fill it with unnecessary characters that were already found in the core book, because as this being a supplement is meant to be played with that together. And so I was worried that we would see some of those characters be repeated, and thankfully they didn't. So now down the road, I do expect that they will do some of that, because as these stories evolve, as the characters evolve, some of those non-player characters are going to evolve as well. And so we're going to see Cobra Commander at some point don his more metal armor instead of the cloth that he does currently, and seeing a lot of other things like that down the road. And so it's definitely something that I will expect to see something happen, but this early in the game, I'm glad that they didn't do that, and kept it to just all new content. So I really like that about this. And again, I'm really looking forward to playing this, and just want to say thank you to Renegade for sharing this with us. We definitely appreciate it, and want to thank you guys as always for watching, and I hope you all have a great night.